So we clearly see that he's talking about the word. All right, now, the Bible talks about leprosy. What is leprosy in the Bible? It's a hideous disease that cannot be cured. It's a hideous disease that cannot be cured. The leprosy in the Bible is a representation of sin and the sinner. It's how God sees the sinner, and we should see ourselves. So what happens? What is leprosy actually? It's really where you lose the nerve endings in any component of your body. Like you got nerves in the tip of your finger, right? So if you hurt your finger, stomp it or cut it, whatever, you get the sensation of pain. That nerve sends it up to your brain say ouch because you just hurt your finger. Now, what happens if my fingers become lepers? Well, I don't have that nerve ending there. So what happens is if I take my fingers and I'm rubbing up against things, right? What happens? I don't even know that I broke the bone on the tip. I don't know that I'm rubbing my fingers till they become nubs because I have no feeling. You can take it and you can roll a vehicle over and I wouldn't feel it. And that's what sin does. We become callous to sin so that you start doing it over and over and over and over again. And what happens? You don't have any feelings toward it. What was and should be wrong according to the scriptures is now right in your eyes. Why? Because you've made your morals, you've basically took the candle that God gave you, the two candles, remember, creation and conscience, where the law of God was written on your heart, where you know it's wrong to murder, but you've reasoned it in your mind. You become so callous to that murdering isn't any big deal to you. You come up with an excuse to say that it was justified. You know, too many people on the planet, so I'm gonna go around and kill half the people on the planet. It's an unwanted pregnancy when you know that having sexual relationships can lead to that. And they're unwanted. So you justify murdering a baby. So that's what I'm trying to say. That's what leprosy is in the book. So let's look at this and watch what happens, how God gets rid of sin. That's what this is all about, even though he's talking about leprosy. Okay? Now he wants to show us how he cleans the leper. Clean him from what, Lord? The Bible is only talking about how God redeems, folks. It's not about how you live. It teaches you that. But what is the book really about? It's about God showing himself through his attributes, revealing to us his reconciliation plan, and revealing to you his Redeemer to get rid of this. This was necessary. It was necessary for God to reveal his attributes. What also was necessary? That God gives a plan to redeem from sin. Okay. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "This shall be the law of the leper." So, you can now substitute the word leper, and you can plug in the law of the sinner. For the day of his cleansing. Cleansing from what, God? Cleansing from his sin. From his sin. The leper shall be brought to the priest, and the priest shall go out where? Go out of the camp, and the priest shall examine him. Do you notice that the priest went out of the camp? The priest examines him. And indeed, if the leprosy is healed in the leper, then the priest shall command to take him who is to be cleansed. Wait a minute. I thought he was healed from the leprosy. No, friend. That's the external leprosy. The external can be cleansed. How? You can change your behavior. An alcoholic can become free of alcoholism on his own. Do you need Christ? Of course not. People do it all the time. A drug addict can stop doing drugs. A murderer can stop murdering. What does that mean? It don't mean anything. It means he stopped murdering. That's all. But in the eyes of God, for him to get rid of his sin, it isn't enough for the sinner to stop sinning. Because that's not his problem. The sinning part is not the problem. Do you understand what I just said? The sinning, committing sins is not people's problems. What's the problem, Kevin? The problem is this. You are a leper. You are a sinner. That's what you have to get rid of. Not the sinning. Because there are people who sin less than others. What does that have to do with it? Nothing. Both are still sinners. What if the sinner stopped sinning, if it was possible, and it's not? But what if it was? What if the sinner stopped sinning? That's what this just said. The priest shall go out of the camp, and he shall examine him. And if the leprosy, if the sinning is healed, what does it mean by healed? If it ceased. If it ceased to destroy his body, how would the priest know? Because he can start seeing flesh again. All the decay and the rot. Did the fingers come back? Of course not. It's just that when he looked at the flesh, the appearance of the leprosy is going away. What's the appearance? The acts of sins. He's no longer drinking. You bring him a bottle and he says, no, I've been sober for 10 years. I don't want that. Leprosy can be healed. And it can be healed outside of the camp. Whose camps? God's camp. The tabernacle, folks. So, the priest goes into the world. He examines. If there's a change, he noticed something. Then the priest shall command to take for him who is cleansed 2 living, clean, what? Birds. Cedarwood, scarlet, and hyssop. What in the world do he need that for when the man is already healed? Why do you need that? He's already stopped sinning. Of course, he didn't stop sinning. But that's basically what it's saying. He done turned over a new leaf. Let's find out if he did it in God's eyes.
And the priest shall command that one of the birds be killed.
Wait a minute. Why does a bird need to be killed if the sinner has stopped sinning? Because that rascal is still a sinner. If the leper have gotten rid of his leprosy, is he not still a leper? Yes. He's just a leper that don't have the outward appearance of leprosy. So the sinner, if he stops sinning, is still a sinner without the external evidence of him sinning. Somebody has to die. In order for the sinner to be converted, somebody have to die, and it cannot be the sinner. That's useless. So him stopping something can't change the fact that he's a leper. And he has to walk around saying unclean, unclean, unclean. And it should be done in an earthen vessel. Why in the world must it be done in an earthen vessel? And what is that? We are going to the scriptures for the explanation. What is this earthen vessel that he's talking about? We're in the book of Hebrews. Hebrews explains all this, folks. If you want to know all about the Old Testament, the first 5 books, the book of Hebrews explains it all. Here it is right here, starting in verse 5. For he, speaking of Christ, has not put the world to come of which we speak in subjection to angels. The world to come isn't going to angels, it's going to men. But one testified in a certain place, what is man? This is David speaking. What is man that you are mindful of him, or the son of man that you take care of him? You have made man a little lower than the angels. You have crowned him with glory and honor and set him over the works of your hand. You have put all things in subjection under his feet. For in that God, he is God, put all in subjection under him, he left nothing that is put under him. Meaning everything that God created in the earth, that is the physical creation, he put it under subjection of man. But now, we see, now obviously folks, he's talking about Christ. He's just using man as an example, but he's about to tell you about Christ. Now, we do not yet see all things put under him, but we see Jesus, who was made a little lower than the angels. Why? And notice this, he was made. Was the earthen vessels made? Yes. You and I were born. There was a body made for Jesus that was not born. The body Jesus had is made by God. It's his clothes. He spoke it into existence. I mean, he spoke it into, God is a spirit, folks. The spirit don't have a body. A little lower than the angels, for the suffering of death, crowned with glory and honor, that he, by the grace of God, may taste death for everyone. Now watch. This is the earthen vessel. For it was fitting. This is so glorious. It was fitting for him
For whom are all things? Who's he talking about? Talking about Jesus. For whom are all things? And by whom are all things? What did he just call Jesus? The Creator. Everything is from him and by him, and bringing many sons to glory. Does that ring a bell to you? Romans 3:23 says, you and I come short of God's glory. Here in Hebrews, you get it back. To make the captain of their salvation perfect through sufferings. I'll explain this perfect through sufferings thing later. For both he who sanctifies and those who are being sanctified are of one. You see, partakers with the offering. For which reason he is not ashamed to call them brethren, saying, I will declare your name to my brethren. In the midst of the assembly, he's talking about Israel again, I will sing praise. And again, I will put my trust in him. And again, here am I. This is Jesus talking to the Father. Here am I, Father, and the children whom you have given me. Where did the believers come from? God gave them to Christ. Nobody comes to Christ. You are given to Christ. Inasmuch, right here, inasmuch then as the children, that's us, this is the believers. All believers, folks, that has nothing to do with Old Testament, New Testament, it's about every believer. Inasmuch as they were partaken of flesh and blood, he himself, God, likewise shared the same, that through death he may destroy him who had the power of death, that is the devil, and release those who were through fear of death were all their lifetime subject to bondage. For indeed, listen to this, God, Jesus, does not give aid. He's not saving any angel that sinned. He don't give aid to angels, but he does give aid to the seed of Abraham. Therefore, in all things, he had to be made like his brethren, that he might be merciful and a faithful high priest in things only though pertaining to God, to make a propitiation for sins of the people, for in that he himself suffered, being tempted, he is able to aid those who are tempted. Folks, this is glorious. That's your earthen vessel, the one that was made like the sons of men. You see how the Bible explains the Bible? All right, let's wrap this up because we're getting long on time. All right, so the bird was killed. Why was the bird killed? So notice we had two living birds, right? And they had to be clean. It couldn't be a vulture. It couldn't be a raven. It couldn't be a hawk. It couldn't be an eagle. Those were unclean birds. It had to be a dove, pigeon, birds like that. All right. Cedarwood, scarlet hyssop, and the priest shall command that one bird is killed. And it's killed for sin. And it had to be in an earthen vessel. Jesus had to be made like us. Why? For the purpose of dying. What did it say now? For death. That he can become a propitiation. Jesus is the bird that was killed. Over running water. What is that? That's the living water that Jesus said he would give. He didn't come just by blood. He came by blood and water. Water to cleanse, blood for forgiveness of sins. As for the living bird, as for you, now you get life. One bird dies for sin. Who died? Christ. In that act, the leper also dies.
substitute, a propitiation.
As for the living bird, what happens? There's another bird. He shall take it, the cedar wood and the scarlet and hyssop. And listen to this. Look at what happens to the living bird. He dipped them and the living bird in the blood.
The blood. He dipped the same thing that this other bird happens, the one that was died, but now the living bird dipped in the blood of the bird that was killed, and you too get the running water. What is that? The Spirit of God, the Word of God.
And he shall sprinkle it 7 times. Why 7?
Completion. Complete salvation. Nothing to add. You enter into the 7th Sabbath of rest.
On him who is to be cleansed from his leprosy.
That's how he got cleansed. Not up here where it looked like he was healed externally. God can't accept that. He got to get cleansed. How?
By the blood, man. By the blood.
You don't get cleansed by stop sinning. By the blood.
Leprosy. And shall pronounce after he's cleansed with the blood, God pronounce him clean.
This is Lazarus coming from the grave. What did God say? Let the living bird loose. Take off the grave clothes. Change his clothes. Wash him clean thoroughly in this running water. Let him go back into the field. What's the field? Matthew 13 tells us that the field is the world. So the believer goes back into this wicked world to do what? To testify of Jesus Christ.
He who is to be cleansed now. Look at this.
Didn't we read this previously in Leviticus 6? Watch this.
Shall wash his clothes.
Why in the world is he doing that? It's sin, man. Now you are clean. And any stain that gets on that garment have to be washed.
Shave off his hair.
Why is he doing that? Because God don't want any of that mess you think that he can use. You say, oh, I have a nice voice. So what? God said, I don't want that. You gave that to the world. You take on the talent that I give you. If I give it you to sing, go sing. But if God says, I want you to do something else, and you say, no, I got a beautiful voice. Everybody praises my voice. I'm going to sing. Nothing's going to come out of that. As a matter of fact, your singing is going to be sin. And you know what's going to happen? God's going to take you to the woodshed. After you do that, after you shave off and God humbles you, now you become useful. But then you continue to be washed in water. What's the water? You wash yourself, wash himself. Who's doing it? Wash himself. In what? In water. What's the water? Come on. What's the water? The word. Who washes him? The pastor. No. Who washes him? Some teacher. No. The Bible study group? No.
wash himself.
You get in this word. Let me show you in the New Testament, just in case some of you are sitting there saying, oh, that's the Old Testament. You know better than that.
Watch this. God is going to say the same thing to us after. Look at this. This is so beautiful. You now become a living sacrifice.
You're the living bird.
I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed. How, God?
By washing yourself. How do I do that?
By the renewing of your mind.
How do I renew my mind? That you may prove what is that good and acceptable, perfect will of God. You gotta get in the word. You gotta get in the word. And it goes on and it starts talking about the word of God. Friend, listen. This is how the scriptures are studied. This is in-depth Bible study. That surface stuff, folks, I don't know what people read. If you want to renew your mind, just surface reading. Did you see what I did? And then, please, I'm not at all bragging on myself. What am I doing? I'm teaching you how to study the word for yourself. So you see Christ and not see some birds and not see lepers. You see what the Bible is actually talking about. He just simply uses the ritual of lepers to show you the transformation of a sinner to a saint. This is all about Christ. This is all about the reconciliation plan. Everything in the book is about that. And if you go into your study understanding that, then you're going to see it in every verse. That's what you're going to see. But if all you're going here looking for is how to fix your marriage, then this scripture right here, you know what that becomes? How to fix my marriage. That's what you're going to see. Because that's what you're looking for. I look for nothing else but Jesus Christ.
Going to wash himself that he may be clean. Now, is the washing of himself makes him clean?
No, it's the blood that made him clean.
This is what keeps him clean and inside the camp.
You see, my behavior keep me inside the camp? No, it keeps you clean inside the camp. It keeps you clean inside the camp. The blood got you into the camp, and the blood is what that keep you in the camp.
Why? Because it requires a death.
If you want to get out of the camp, you got to die. And if you die, then you don't have life. The bird is living. The one that died, God raised him from the dead. The others live. There's nothing in this book that shows you the depth of these birds that are living. Why? Because they don't die. Christ says, I give you life.
Now, after that, he shall come into the camp and shall stay outside his own tent
7 days to enter God's rest. But on the 7th day, he shall shave all the hair off his head and his beard and his eyebrows all his hair shall be shaved off. He shall wash his clothes and his body in water, and he shall be clean. This is so beautiful. This is so wonderful. Folks, when I read this is Leviticus. God preaching the gospel in Leviticus. I tell you, this word, this Bible, the scriptures are absolutely amazing. When you understand what it's truly about and you see Christ in every verse, there's nothing like it. It is so wonderful. Hope you enjoyed tonight. Folks, we'll pick up right here next time, tomorrow morning. So see you tomorrow morning. Take care.